participants, dear faculty members, research associate and research students. Today, we are going to conduct 13th seminar of our DS academic calendar. And today, the speaker is Dr. Muhammad Ali. He earned his PhD from Malaysia, and he is serving this university since 14 years. And today, the topic of his talk is the tips for effective synopsis writing. This is a very important topic, and students must listen very carefully, because most of you people are at the stage of your synopsis writing, as the fall semester will start in September, and you have to submit and defend your synopsis before the September. Otherwise, your third semester will not be allowed. I will not take much time and give the mic to the today's speaker, Dr. Muhammad Ali. Please start your talk. It will be about 30 to 40 minutes. After that talk, we will have 5 questions. And if you have any question during the talk, you can write in the chat room. Please mute your all mic. Only the speaker mic and screen share will be allowed. And this recording will be uploaded on the DS YouTube channel. I will share the link. DS, you also can search from our website. That can also be listened later on. That's all. Thank you for your sparing time, and please start your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azam Khan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, respected Director Advanced Studies, colleagues, students, and other participants, I am grateful to Director Advanced Studies for providing me this golden opportunity to share my insights about effective synopsis writing, which could be useful for MSc and PhD students. So I'm going to share my slides. So after attending this webinar, what we can expect. So I expect that we would be able to understand and learn what is a synopsis and how to write different sections, starting from abstract to literature review, references. And you would also learn about do's and don'ts of writing synopsis. As Dr. Azam has already said, these useful tips would be useful in formulating your synopsis. Although these all things are available on the website of university, particularly the page of Director Advanced Study. So here you would find different sections. In those sections, you would find synopsis and ultimately writing your thesis. But I'm going to share some practical tips which would be surely useful. During my service, I have observed that most of the students, it's pity that they are unclear about what is synopsis, what are different sections, how to write those sections. So you will find those answers today, although some of the students are very good in writing. So what is a synopsis? It is a roadmap or a plan for your proposed research. So you have to write in your future tense. So it gives us the rationale for the research objectives, including the main journal objective, and the data collection or the research methodology, which could be useful, which we are going to use, and qualitative and quantitative formats. In qualitative, we usually use different recordings or key informant interviews we conduct. In quantitative, we use different survey method and include questionnaires or interview. And it also contains the expected outcomes of the research. And if you see this page, particularly the precise information has been suggested or given by the Director of Advanced Studies, in which you have to mention your name, the student's name, registration number, supervisory committee, along with their department name, their research title, background of the research, background of the study, rationale of the research study, objectives, methodology, outcome of the research, reference papers, an important thing, missing gap, need of the research, and supervisor previous research about said topic, because some supervisors, they do get different students, but it is subject to their previous research experience. If they are not well versed with that particular topic, so there would be a problem in the future for researcher, I mean the student, as well as the supervisor. So it is good that they have added this as well. So first is the topic. So it should be the clear picture, and it should be self-explanatory, specific, and brief. As we say, brevity is the soul of wit. So we have to follow that while writing our topic, research topic, thesis topic, whatever you name it. So it should directly relate to your specific objectives and main objective of the proposed research. You could find this from the keywords from the title. And it should also exhibit the research issues addressed in the study. So for this, you have to follow Directorate of Advanced Study requirement in terms of the number of the in the title, I mean the letters or the words. So what is abstract? So abstracts is a concise picture or description of your study. It usually includes your problem statement and objective, research method and design, and particularly the model and theory, and statistical analysis technique, plus the software you are going to use and expected outcomes. So what I would suggest, don't include irrelevant or unimportant material. What I have seen from different departments when they come with their synopsis, I have found they have written unimportant or irrelevant material in your abstract. And I have found not only here, but rest of the synopsis as well as thesis, that there are many grammatical or English language mistakes in terms of their spellings, keywords, mismatch with the title, and sequence they do not follow. So try to follow this important thing, that you have to go through your synopsis, your stuff several times, so that you can eliminate different mistakes, grammatical or spellings or syntax errors. So there are two things in your synopsis. What is first one is why, and the second one is how. The why is about your which you include in your introduction, and how in your methodology section. So in this, you have to include background of the study, rationale, and I would suggest that you follow the runway approach. You can see an aeroplane starts preparing before flying. So you have to be ready in this way. So you reflect your topic in your introduction. I have found some students, they do not include, I mean, they are off the topic, off the road while writing their introduction. And you have to mention the objectives and theory and model which you are going to use, in particularly in social sciences, agriculture, social sciences, it should be mandatory that there should be theory or model included and different variables. I'm going to talk later on this. So the other issues, students do not talk about the main problem in their introduction section. And then the problem is for farmers, for whom, I mean the respondents or the beneficiaries, and why, the reasons. So these you should include in your section. Another thing is students, they are unable to justify their research problem in their introduction section. Because these things, as I have seen, these all kinds of research problem, they come from your literature review. After reviewing many or maybe tons of research papers or articles, scholarly stuff, you would come up with the gap of knowledge. What is the gap? That could be in terms of your empirical gap, that could be in terms of methodological gap. So the methodology or unexplained phenomena. Another thing which is important, it is subject to the quality control. We should not take those problems and highlight that we have taken from blogs or newspaper articles, because anybody can fabricate, can make addition. So the thing is, the narrative is that you have to take those things from the literature, existing literature. And then the research gap, empirical or theoretical gap, we have to mention here that why we are going to do this and which methodology, which theory, which model will be applicable. And if somebody has already done that particular research, so what was the gap? The research and the specific objectives. Now, based on your well-versed or doing different review, you come up with the research objectives. So determine whether the background to the study is well discussed. You have to mention in this area, the research problem is well defined, it is well articulated, and a hypothesis, which usually I have found students do not include in their research synopsis, either at the master level or the PhD level. So you have to include, and hypothesis would address the defined research problem. And then you have to ensure that the objectives are clearly stated, written, and these are synchronized with your research methodology, research design, which you are going to be used. And then the specific and the journal objectives. These are very important in your research. So your objectives need to be identified, as I have already said, on the basis of problem analysis, which has been highlighted by Director Advanced Studies and even the Vice Chancellor of this university, that you have, when a student comes or join a department, he should start reviewing different articles so that he should be prepared. And the selection of those objectives should be justified and relevant. I have seen the topic is different and the specific objectives are sometimes different from that. So means that is not relevant. Another thing is the specific objective may be 2, 3, 4, 5, it depends. Usually it is 3 to 4. In qualitative research, these could be 2 or 3, but usually I have seen 2. But in quantitative, this could be 3 or 4. But this should not be more than that, because otherwise you will be off the track to the research. Another thing is the objectives. The objective should be SMART, meaning that it should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You see, if you are planning a research which is not a time bound, it could take several years, then it is not your objective. It could be objective of any project, development project, but not the research objective. But is that the realistic? I have one student who came to me with 7 objectives, and I saw that all the objectives were irrelevant, and they could take 7 to 8 years, and that was not for the MSc time bound. So in that particular time duration, you cannot achieve those. Then hypotheses. What I have observed, most of the students, they do not include hypotheses because these are the prediction of outcomes of your study, in which you can see you should write any relationship, any association. And if you use the word relation and association, uh, you should know that these are relevant to the uh, variables, which could be dependent and independent variables. Even there could be assumption or hypothesis of influence, effect of like corona on children, on students of higher education institutions, farmers, and there are independent variables. So if we would like to see that what are the behavioral intention of farmers towards SOPs, then our dependent variable would be behavioral intention, and independent variable would be our attitude, subjective norms, peer pressure, or personal efficacy, personal control, like they can wear or not, or so everything should be clear in your research, and everything should be interconnected. And these variables, they derive from your theory and different models which are existing, whether those has been established or formulated maybe 1 century ago. It is it should not be relevant to some personal observations. These are the set variables, and they have been tested in different grounds, in different manners, in different situations. So in usually in qualitative research, hypothesis is not required, or hypotheses are not required. In quantitative research, these should be formulated, and the format is that there is no relationship, association between corona patient and their age or blah blah blah, or there is H naught and HA, which is H is mostly the research hypothesis. So this is there is a relationship between blah 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 blah. So we have to include these as well. Then is the scope and relevance. We have to we have to ensure that this research study is appropriate for the degree it is intended. Although there are different universities who have started different degree programs, multidisciplinary programs, even then we have to specify our field of study, the research issues, the practicability of the address research problem, and the research objectives. I have seen many students, they lack in writing. I mean, they don't know how to write different limitations. They just write that we did not have time, or we will not have time to cover these things. There will be lack of funding. So what we have to write, actually, limitation in terms of methodology, like qualitative or quantitative. The study would be quantitative or qualitative. Our respondents would be only farmers. Our respondent might be the general public or private sector, policymakers, etc., and the list goes on. So are the limitations. Another could be the area, like we have taken Potohar region, or we are going to collect data from Potohar region. We cannot cover the entire country or entire region, SARC or uh, other world, because it would be difficult. So these things I would suggest as a main tip to include. And then is the review of literature. Actually, it is the problem analysis. What you have analyzed through different scholarships, which have been written by different scholars, and particularly from the last 5 years. It is the work of other scholars. You cannot write in your own, otherwise that would be a plagiarism issue. You have to see the detail, you have to write detail about the research problem. After reviewing the literature, you come up with the research problem. And then I have seen some students, they are unable to write critically. Like 3 or 4 scholars recently, they have talked about behavioral intentions of general public about COVID, but or however, now you have to add your personal gatherings in the form of intellectual discussion, and you have to connect the dots. And then different scholars, they use different theories, models, even some researchers, they take variables from different models or theories, and then they come up with their own model. So we have to write in our this section what are different theories and models which have been used by other scholars, research students, what methodology they have used, and what were the gaps they have found in their empirical or other gaps. Knowledge gap would be there. So don't describe it just, I have seen what the students do, they just come with some kind of study was done in Ethiopia, and they found blah, 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 and the sample size were blah, blah, blah. So you have to synthesize all the knowledge which you have gathered. There are different metrics which have been prescribed by different scholars who usually talk about the synopsis writing. So those are available on the internet. You can go through from those and follow those different things. So here are some tips. You have to ensure that it should be relevant to your research issues. Don't take those literature which are irrelevant. If you are talking about mangoes, so you should not include citrus and other crops. Although somewhere it might be useful to write. Why? Because there could be less work or less attention has been paid by other researchers, and it is entirely new. It is totally new thing. Then you can add, because there is scarcity of literature on that. Even it depends how you connect the dots. So literature review is comprehensive and takes into the consideration past, present work, what is available. It is well reviewed, and you can summarize, come up with some narrative or just what the other people have done. And then you have to organize. Even I have seen some people, they hang on chart and make some headings like this one is relevant. Even I would suggest that you have to subscribe those journals which usually publish papers which are relevant to your work. So this is the first step which I usually suggest my student to go. The students come up with ideas which are not relevant. They do not subscribe different journals. Even some of them are free. If those are not, you have access in the library. You can go, if you connect with the university internal internet, even you can download or subscribe. Then you have to identify the gap of knowledge, and how, when you go through, at least I would suggest at least 150 to 200 research papers, then you come up with your knowledge which you might found from the available knowledge gap. And then sorry, there was interruption. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, your screen is not visible.
Okay, sorry about that. These are some ICT issues and we don't have control on that.
Now
Sorry about
screen is
that.
okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Azam. I don't know, there was an issue from the internet. Okay. So the narrative is that we have to go through different relevant and important journals and published papers, and then subscribe to different journals which are relevant to our research or work. Then methodology, as I have said earlier, it is how we are going to collect data, or what would be our methods. So in this, we have to describe about our data collection techniques, which should be appropriate, specific, and realistic, as I told you earlier. So there are different types. In the first line, you can see we usually conduct surveys. If we have to collect data, like the research is quantitative, we formulate questionnaire with different questions. We include Likert scale and other questions which are related to our socio-economic profile of the respondents. From the lens of qualitative research, we go for field observations, different case studies, focus group discussion, and key informant interviews. And we might record them and then transcribe and come up with the different themes and the different results. Then we have to mention in our research methodology, we are going to use structured questionnaire, semi-structured, or open-ended. Semi-structured and open-ended are usually used in qualitative research. In quantitative, when we are going to collect data from more than 100, 200, 500, 800, it's up to the question types and your objective and your topic. And then I have seen some of the students, they even do not bother to include references in their methodology, why they are using, whom they are following. Another thing is we have to include data analysis techniques, and what I suggest that pre-testing is also required in case of quantitative research. So it can be done on 50 or maybe 80 If your respondents are 300 or 400, it would be sufficient in order to test reliability and validity of your questionnaire, which is your research instrument. Another thing which I would suggest, that you have to mention where you have taken different statements or research questions in your research instrument, in your questionnaire. Students, they just think that these questions would be relevant and they come up with that format. From the context of research process, it is usually unacceptable. Yes, if you are going to have your own theory or model, then you can frame different questions. It would be tested and followed in another country and different scholars. When you get different results, then you can say that I have formulated these statements either on Likert scale or on yes or no, I mean on binary type of things. So material and method. In this section, you have to ensure whether the collection, strength and weaknesses of the data to be used or collected in the study are clearly specified. Usually they just write 1 or 2 sentences that this methodology is going to be adopted, but they do not write or mention strength and weaknesses. And the research design, sample size, in which sample size, selection of methods, how you selected, and whether that is suitable or not to address those your objectives. So you have to see whether your research methodology is useful in doing research or solving the issues of this study which you have planned or which you are going to discuss in your seminar. So it may be replicated in another country, in another region by other researchers. So you have to mention that. And I can mention, share with you one of the example that one of the researchers from another country, he contacted with one of our colleagues that I'm going to use that particular methodology, but I don't know the exact things because you did not describe in your research paper. So the question is that you have, whether you have included those things clearly or not. So you have to give every step, mention every step in your methodology. And student, they just write, we would use statistical analysis. Yes, you can and you should, but how are you going to do it? By manually, or you are going to use Excel or any other software like SPSS, Startup, or any other packages, and which version? You have to mention this as well. And method to be used is properly and adequately referenced. Like many other scholars in their research article, you could find that they have already mentioned that we have used this statistical technique by administering this statistical package or software, so that blah, 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 blah. So here are some common issues. First one is students are unclear about their sampling technique, whether that is qualitative, quantitative, or mixed. I mean, some of the students, if they can use both, but you have to mention. And if you have mentioned quantitative, then you should not use qualitative research technique. I have seen one of the students, he was carrying his synopsis, and he said, I'm going to use this, but written was something else, what he was saying. And the sample size, students are mostly unclear about it. They just say we are going to collect data, okay, from 200, that would be appropriate. But how, why? Did you use Morgan table or any other table? In the statistical analysis, again, if the students are not well versed with different statistical analysis techniques, I would suggest they start learning about different statistical techniques, or particularly the technique which they are going to use. The student, they could say that I'm going to use R, but when they are in the middle of their research, I mean their research process, they would say, okay, I have to shift to the SPSS. So everything should be planned in advance. And why you are going to use different analysis techniques and statistical packages, and which, like if you're going to use SPSS, which variant, 21 or 16, and which one is available. And you have to see all those things which you can get from that particular software. Qualitative and quantitative method, again, you should not mix. If you are saying that you are going to collect data from 200 respondents, then it is quantitative. It is not qualitative. In qualitative, maybe 4, 8, 10, or 20 people are sufficient. And you should be aware of your variables, dependent and independent variables. So these variables you should mention on the basis of the model, your objectives you are going to use. Even if you show me your objectives, I can tell you which one is your dependent variable and which are your independent variables. I have asked even different question. Are you very aware about different variables? They said, no, we don't know. I said, okay, can you show me your objectives? They said, yes, here are objectives. So I asked, where are your dependent and independent variable? They said, no, we don't have independent or dependent variable. So in quantitative or in social science research, you should have these variables. And you have to mention, you have to use theory, then you come up with different variables. Here is the references or bibliography. Before that, am I going too fast? Anybody can comment shortly.
It's
No.
okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, references, bibliography or literature cited. You could find different words in different journals in different formats. So in this, what I would suggest, you have to go through DAS, Director Advanced Study Guidelines. They have already mentioned how to follow, like in text citations, and how to write your reference list. Usually that is in alphabetical order, because references, bibliography, this is the work of others. And if somebody, I mean the reader or your supervisory committee, they want to see whom they have followed, they can just go through the title and the other thing, or maybe the year. So as I suggested earlier, you have to mention, you have to follow different papers from the last 2 years, preferably, or at least from the last 5 years. But if your research is relevant to history, or you are saying like what was about the impact of blah, blah, blah in a couple of years ago, in one decade before, then you can go. But usually you have to mention the references which are relevant, the work from the last 5 years. So when any reference you have cited in the text is missing or not, this is the main problem I have seen even with the senior students. They cite different references either in text, but they forget to mention in the bibliography or in the reference section, or the otherwise. And the format which you are using, I have seen different formats students come up with. Like we usually follow APA format, American Psychological Association. and there are different different 6 or 7, I mean, formats. So you have to follow what DAS guidelines have prescribed to you, have suggested to you. And once and for all, I would suggest to avoid plagiarism. What students do, they just cut and copy from different material, and it is, you know, it is considered to be plagiarism, because similarity index we use Turnitin, so it shows your result within certain seconds, few seconds. You can find from where you have plagiarized, from where you had copied different material. If you want to plagiarize, like if something is relevant to your work, you can sorry again for the disruption. I don't know what is the issue. I hope you can hear me clearly. Is that true?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, sir, we can hear
Okay.
you now.
Okay, great. It's good. It's engaging because I've seen many students are still joining and there are many students. Okay, shortly we will have your question answer session. So hold your horses. I'm going to continue. Here you go. Okay. So you have to discuss and you have to see, first you have to go through all this stuff and list of specific comments or suggestions which need to be improved. I mean, which can improve your synopsis, either at MPhil, MSc or PhD thesis. Another thing, even in your synopsis, you have to add questions as well. I forgot to add that final slide in this version. So you have to add research questions. And then here you have to list different questions. Better you will have a checklist in which you should write that you have answered these questions. Everything is in a manner which can be easily understand. It is easily perceivable, and sequence, you have to see the sequence. Now, there are different students who visit me for these questions, like how many pages we should have in our synopsis. Yes, that is true, that you should be aware of that. But whatever material you can include in order to justify your work, your planned work, your future work, that is okay. But from the context of Word, 3,000 to 400, 3,000 to 4,000 words are sufficient. But we have to check this requirement from the Director of Advanced Studies. And then students, they are roaming here and there for theory or model application, which could be suitable theory, which could be relevant theory. It is very difficult question. I mean, if you are from the social sciences, then it is always difficult. Like if I have taken this theory or model, would that justify my topic? It depends. So again, At the end of the day, you are answerable why you have selected this theory model, even if you have taken few variables from that. Yes, the supervisor or your advisor, if you name it, he can just suggest to you, guide you that this theory or model or even the variable could be useful as he has number of years experience. And the methodology, students are unclear. Even it's pretty, I'm sorry to say that even they have completed their study or degree, they are still unclear about their methodology. You should be clear of methodology. Everything should be on your fingertips because it's not a rocket science. You are going to collect data or you have collected the data. So everything should be in line and you should be clear about that. Thank you. These are a few tips, important tips. If I have missed any, you may ask in the form of question. Yes, please. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you may ask question. Even you can ask in any language. I would answer in, yes, please.
And yes, now we have 5 questions. One by one, students, teachers can ask.
Sir, I have a question if you please allow me to
Yes,
ask.
please, please.
Thank you, first of all, thank you, Dr. Ali, for explaining things in such a detail, and I think you managed the topic in a very well way. I just want to get one thing from your personal experience, just a tip. If you can suggest something that how we can manage a student to indulge them into this scientific writing process, like how we can indulge them towards starting their synopsis, because sometimes you do have some weak students, those are having some kind of fear that they are not good in that, and how we can overcome those things and how we can motivate them. So if you can share some experience from your life, thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Osman, very good question. What I would suggest, like I have seen in my university where I have earned my PhD degree, that they had different research writing and synopsis writing, even the thesis writing groups. So they used to sit and discuss. That was like scholarly different platforms. They used to sit, like if they are from agriculture or extension, they had different group. They used to meet fortnightly, and they discuss. Even they used to review the work of others, from where you could get the tips, like what are the different pitfalls or different things which I did not include in my synopsis. Even they used to check the work of other, because they knew, because they did not have a threat or fear of plagiarism. Otherwise, in our country, I am afraid people could take away your novel ideas. But even then, it is good. You can have different intellectual forums, even at the university level, and it should not be formally uh, forums. You can manage yourself. In that, you can have your group leader, research group leader, who could be your PhD student, I mean the senior student or senior member, even the young faculty members, they could be part of that. And I'm sure they would contribute well in that, because they have gone through this process. So you can discuss, you can share your work, even your ideas, and where you need improvement. Even your another thing, another approach is that when you meet or sit with your students under the same supervision, umbrella of the same supervisor, then you get insights that, am I going into right way, or there are some distractions? Am I off the line, or I'm jumping into the wrong direction? So these are questions you can find from that particular intellectual forums. Yes, another question.
Next, please. Is there any further question?
Okay, till you have your question, one thing I would like to add, Dr. Azam Khan, that is about the different sections of thesis and synopsis. Like our students are unaware, they are blind about this, and there is no particular subject which can quench the thirst of our students. So maybe you can encourage from your forum different research groups, I mean informal groups, in the form of social gatherings where they can sit, but instead of gossip or chit chat, they can discuss intellectual matters, particularly from how to write abstract, how to write a research problem, which is the main hurdle for many of the students. Even for the PhD students, I have seen the students were waiting 1 year in order to answer this research problem, how to write that. Yes, any other question till that if you have?
That's a thank you. You highlighted very good issue. But you know, in the master and even in some other degree programs, we also have the one course, technical report writing. And I supposed the teachers some primary things, how to write the report, and how we find objectives and other things. That is because, you know, it is a very detailed topic, and that's why we incorporate in course in the degree program of the MPhil and MS, that even some undergraduate, we also can do it. That can help the students to learn. And the other thing I want to clarify that in our university we have just one pattern, APA6, for the reference. And in this summer, the students, after the examination in the July, I am planning to arrange a workshop from the people will be from other universities in different groups, just like for agriculture second semester, then for sciences, then for social sciences. We will do a training to use the EndNote and even technical English report writing. I hope that will be much helpful for our research students. Dr. Ali, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time, and your participation in your lecture was very good, and it seems your topic was very nice, that the people came to learn you, listen you, learn from you and listen you. I'm very happy that our research students, our faculty members are taking interest in this seminar series, and hope the student will do learning with their experience of their teachers of different departments. Thank you very much for your special time. I just want to tell that the next seminar will be from the statistics department. It will be very important. The students from a different degree program should attend this, because it will be helpful to design your research in future. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali, and Dr. Badr Naseem, Chairman Extension Department, for arranging such a beautiful seminar. And thank you for students to be with us in this learning stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.